नमस्कार श्री अशोक वाजपेयी जी।
नमस्कार।
आपका अभिनंदन। अम, ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण मैं समझती हूँ एक रिकॉर्डिंग। इट्स अ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रिकॉर्डिंग, especially with regard to the Raigarh Gharana of Kathak, which is rather obscure in its beginnings, or should I say its revival history, because most of the research that has been done on the Raigarh Gharana uh, obliterates your name and Rashmi Vajpeyi's name. And in my journey of Raigarh, where I stayed with my young baby when I went in the late 80s, early 90s, it was extremely, though people did mention your name, but I was just amazed that no one really quite remembered how important it is to understand how many people's efforts go in the conservation, और जिसको कहेंगे पुनर्निर्माण और पुनर्जीवन देने के लिए। तो मैं अब एक इतिहासकार के रूप में मैं बस शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ कि आपकी वजह से कथक को एक जो खोया हुआ अध्याय था कथक के इतिहास में, कथक के इतिहास में बहुत खोए हुए अध्याय हैं, पर रायगढ़ क्योंकि 20वीं सदी के संदर्भ में और सांस्कृतिक राष्ट्रवाद के संदर्भ में रायगढ़ का बहुत महत्वपूर्ण एक स्थान है, and it has a very very important role, especially with regard to the cultural nationalist discourse on recreating the classical idea of Kathak in the 20th century. You have read my essay and have kindly sort of reviewed it and found that lacuna which went missing of the process that went into the revival of the Gharana. So I would like to document your words for that. But before that, let me introduce you briefly. Shri Ashok Vajpeyi, a very, very eminent Indian officer of the Indian Administrative Services, but more than that, a writer, a thinker, a cultural administrator, and the recipient of the 1994 Sahitya Academy Award for his poem collection Kahin Nahi Wahi. And besides which he has many, many laurels to his name. Of course, one is leading the Raza Foundation, where he has created a platform for critical discourses on different cultural creative energies of this country, especially in this very challenging time where set patterns of thinking, creating cultural nuances somehow had plateaued. And even as we criticize a certain regime, it also has provided us a moment to stop and rethink where we have plateaued. And it is against that curtain that I welcome Shri Ashok Vajpeyi ji for this discussion on the Raigarh Gharana.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. Uh, Let me recall that I happened to be posted as Collector Sarguja in the year 1970. And Rashmi, my wife, had memories which told her that one of the great figures of the Raga Gharana, Kartik Ram, who had earlier been brought to Sangeet Bharati by Kapilaji and had taught for a few days perhaps and found Delhi too intolerable and went back, that he lived somewhere in Raigarh. So we had no clue where he was, and so I asked my colleague, the collector of Raigarh, to trace this dancer. Uh, he rang back after a couple of days that Kartik Ram has now gone back to his village and lives there as a farmer. Now, that was a slightly shocking news. Anyway, I told him that we would like to make him come to Ambikapur, where I was located, and we'd like to honor him and see what can be done. So Kartik Ram came, and we arranged a performance also, and we had conversations and how now there was nobody in Raigarh, and the Raigarh has just disappeared in terms of dance, and all of them, the four, as you know, uh, Kartik Ram being perhaps the eldest, then Kalyan Das Mahant, who was in Khairagarh University, and Pilturam and Barman Lal. These were the four. And what is interesting is that they all came from lower castes, which is unusual in Kathak. If you look at the Bindadin, Kalkadin, Gharana, all of them are Brahmins.
Yes, but
All of them. All
just
of
to
them.
stop you there,
Yeah.
the two main communities which are non-Islamic in as hereditary community, one are the Dholis, who are
Yeah. Yeah.
even lower than the Meghwals. So the
Yes.
entire Jaipur Gharana
Uh,
belongs to the Dholis. Of course,
yes.
they have Sanskritized themselves and calling themselves Pandit. That's different. But
Uh,
including Pandit Jasraj and Pandit Ram Narayan, they are
uh,
all Dholis and
yes.
they are lower than the Meghwals.
Uh,
So they were outcasts. They were
uh,
almost equivalent to the denotified castes like Saperas and Nuts, and there is a connection somewhere that you get these kind of fascinating connections.
yeah.
So
Well, fine. So, but in any case, these four, one of them, Kartik Ram, was a washerman,
Dhobi,
Dhobi, and Filturam, I don't know, Barmanlal was a barber.
Abba,
Yeah, and things of that kind.
Kalyandas was
Uh,
a Mali.
so it was remarkable that the royal patronage in Raigarh went to these lower caste performers. All of them had some background of performance in folk traditions that they had picked up. But none of them was perhaps destined to be a dancer in a professional sense. Anyway, Kartik Ram's visit to Ambikapur, and after about a year and a half, or perhaps less than that, I got shifted to Bhopal as a deputy secretary. And one of my jobs was
Which
to
year
look
would
after
be this? Which year
uh,
would be this, sir?
72, 1972, mid 1972. So one of my jobs in the new assignment was a scheme under which uh, pensions were given by government to writers and artists in indigent circumstances. And I looked at the rules and I found that the person who wants to have a pension has to apply.
Hmm.
Now, that I thought will create problems vis-a-vis. It has created problems. Not many people had applied, and the scheme was more or less dormant. So I first amended the rule. I mean, got it amended by including that if either by an institution or by any knowledgeable individual, it comes to the notice of the government, then such a such person, an artist or a writer, is in indigent circumstances, then the government on its own can grant the pension. Now, by that time, I had become, in addition to my being deputy secretary in the government, I became the secretary of the Madhya Pradesh Kala Parishad, which was then the state kind of a joint academy of visual arts and performing arts. So it was Sangeet, Natak, Lalit Kala Academy all lumped together. And from the Kala Parishad, I wrote to government, that is to myself, that there is an eminent person called Kartik Ram. He lives in this village and he has been a great dancer, etc. He must is in indigent circumstances and therefore the government should sanction a pension. And the pension was sanctioned. The letter went to Kartik Ram, and after about 10-15 days, suddenly in the morning I find that Kartik Ram has come to see me. And I was very taken by surprise, and we invited him in, and he said, I started thinking, I thought a lot. The government, even Ambikapur, and even Raigarh administration doesn't know me. So how the deuce do I get this pension? I have never applied for this pension, etc. Anyway, that was a beginning. In 1980, uh, we had first created an independent department of culture in government of Madhya Pradesh. Till then, there was no independent department. Elements of culture were scattered all over. So, under that, and I became the secretary. And I remained on this job for 10 years, which was
Oh, Mama.
quite unusual for a civil servant somehow. And one of the things that I proposed, in fact, two things. Uh, Till then, Madhya Pradesh had no visible uh, uh, presence of Kathak, except that you invited Kathak dancers, or there were some sundry schools teaching Kathak. But there was no dancer of consequences or importance which has appeared in several decades after the Raigarh dancers have receded in the background. And secondly, there was no tradition of Drupad left, which is supposed to have originated in Gwalior, and yet,
And
yeah,
Datya.
yeah, and there was nobody. So I made many things that I proposed. Two of them was that we should create a Chakradhar Nitya Kendra. And the second was we created Drupad Kendra. And as soon as this was approved, I started getting in touch with Kartik Ram through the collector. And then, to cut the long story short, I think either late 1980 or early 1981, Kartik Ram, accompanied by his son Ramlal, came to Bhopal to take to assume the guru's post in the Chakradhar Nitya Kendra. Although the charter of the Kendra included other dance forms, but we thought we'll first start with Kathak. And this was also a part of another, uh, not imaginary, but uh, another uh, project of imagination, which was to discover and to rehabilitate, if possible, forms or artists who at one time had created something worthwhile and who, for whatever reasons, have now either disappeared or had been pushed into the background. So, for instance, there was this knowledge that there used to be a lady singer of Drupad in some riyasat of Bundelkhand.
Right.
Now, there were Panna and Chhatarpur and Tikamgarh and all that. And I made inquiries and asked collectors to find out if they were. Finally, the Tikamgarh collector discovered Asgari Bai.
That's getting bad. I was just about to
Now,
say.
at that point of time, like Karthik Ram, when we discovered him, was working as a farmer. So Asgari Bai in Tikamgarh was working as a shopkeeper. She
Mhm.
had opened a shop of peppermint and toffees and some kind of a pickle. So Asgari Bai was brought back to Kathak, to Drupad,
Super.
and Karthik Ram was brought back to Kathak. So this is part of that project. It was Tijan Bai from Chhattisgarh,
It's good.
and so I mean that was part of that. Now Karthik Ram came in 1980 or 81 and remained there for 9 years. He was there till about 1989. Uh, Even though towards the end of the period, for 2, 3 years, he was fairly infirm. Uh, then we made Ramlal the Sahayak Guru and finally gave him the Guru's position. And it was a large part of that period. But the earliest period of 3, 4, 5 years, the main teaching was done by Kartik Ram. And Ramlal used to help. I mean, because he had memorized whatever his father had taught him and all that. And the relationship between the two of them was slightly tense. Um, Ramlal was sort of rather ambitious, I would say, and I tried to curb it.
Mhm.
Now, mind you, Chakradhar Nitya Kendra was one of the 10 institutions I was looking after.
Wow.
Drupad Kendra, Ustad Alauddin Khan Sangeet Academy. uh,
So, what is the history and the relationship between the Alauddin Sangeet Summit?
no, that is, you see, the idea to create a Drupad Kendra and a Chakradhar Nitya Kendra was taken by government. Then the question was, what would be the administrative arrangements that have to be made? So I took a decision that now that there is Ustad Alauddin Khan Sangeet Academy, in whose charter I have put training as one of the
Mhm.
things they should engage themselves with, not the Kala Parishad. Kala Parishad's job is not to train, but the job of Ustad Alauddin Khan Sangeet Academy is to train. And since this is one of the objectives, the administrative arrangements will be within the Sangeet Natak, within the Ustad Alauddin
Alauddin.
Khan. It was not created by Ustad Alauddin Khan Sangeet Academy,
Right.
but was taken care of by them. But for both of them, they there was their autonomy as institutions was ensured.
So, if I'm correct, if you're looking at the framework of cultural administration and
Mm,
cultural deliberations,
mm,
you have right at the top the Ustad Alauddin Academy in
yes.
some ways.
Uh,
Then there are two branches to it, one that addresses Dhrupad,
mm,
one that addresses dance, the
mm.
Chakradhar Nritya Kendra.
Yes.
Now, does the Alauddin Institute
Mm.
come under the Department of Culture of the state of Madhya Pradesh?
Yes.
Okay. And it's so the funding of it is state patronage?
Yes.
I see.
And the idea was that we won't, this will be also a rehabilitation of the Guru Shishya Parampara.
One more question, sir. In the model that we see vis-a-vis the Sangeet Natak Academy in the center,
Mm, mm,
you have auxiliary institution like the Kathak,
mm,
the National School of Drama, the Nehru
mm.
Manipur Academy,
Academy, yes.
the Kalakshetra, and so on and so forth. And the important economics of that, I realized, was the repertory
Yeah.
and the production unit that was set
Mm,
up, which was good, but it had its own problems, at least with
yeah.
Kathak.
Yeah.
The repertory was set up, and you create productions, you sell them, you get programs, and you bring in a kind of a sustainability to the model.
Yeah.
So I discovered this by talking to P.N. Huxar when he had come out with the Huxar committee report.
Mm,
Of course, when it came to Kathak, it was very problematic in many ways because Pandit Birju Maharaji had got recruited by the Bharatiya Kala Kendra,
mm.
according to Rashmi
Yeah.
Devi,
Yeah. Yeah.
primarily to be the head of the choreography program, the ballet unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, ballet again is
Yeah.
controversial
Yeah. Well, yeah.
term. And then his induction at the Kathak Kendra in 1964, not only was he appointed the guru, but his work was deliberated majorly towards producing choreography and productions,
Yeah.
which really meant, in my view of critical understanding, I may be wrong, that this led to the that he needed raw material for the production unit, which also meant the training of his students were done as multiple bodies, not for
Mm,
solo training.
yeah.
So the crisis then becomes both at the Bharatiya Kala Kendra and at the Kathak Kendra, the obliteration of the tradition of creating solo dancers.
Mm,
So there was an economic model, but the person in charge then gets visibility, of course, as the great choreographer, but at the crisis of not bringing out solo performers.
yeah. But I knew about it because I was also in the executive council of the Sangeet Natak Academy, etc. at
Right,
the time.
right,
So I
right,
knew our model was A, the number of disciples the guru will have will not be more than 4 or 5.
I see.
Two, that each disciple will get a scholarship.
Right,
And three, there is no compulsion at all for any productions. Not only that, we said that the disciples would not perform until the guru wants him or her to perform.
right.
So ours was a completely different model.
But
Wow.
who is it that came out as a soloist from that gharana?
Huh?
Who, which dancer is a successful soloist from this lineage?
One was Alpana Shukl, now Vajpeyi. The other was Mohini Puchwale.
Where are they? I mean, I know about Alpana ji, but where is Mohini?
Mohini, I think, got married or whatever. And she is, I think, teaches Kathak in some government institution in Jabalpur, I think. I don't know where they are. Uh, the third one was, what was the name? I forget the name now. Hindu or something. Uh, anyway, the point was that in 1982, when Bharat Bhavan was being inaugurated, it was inaugurated with many things, and one of them was publication of 5 books, and one of them related to Raigarh में Kathak,
Kathak, which was written by Karthik Ram.
which is written by Karthik Ram, and it provides the basic details and all that. It was released in during the Bharat Bhavan's inaugural
I see.
festival,
I see.
and then it was part of 5 books. Another book was on Kumar Gandhar. A third book was on Rajab Ali Khan
Okay.
and such like. So you see, and then in the Kathak Kendra, I mean Chakradhar Nritya Kendra, we started an annual Kathak festival,
Kathak Prasang.
and we called it Kathak Prasang, along with a seminar.
Right.
And each time the seminar would also have, just as the prasang, I mean the performing part will also have a theme. So once it was Kathak or Bhav, once it was Kathak and Kavita, another time it was
So it's
Kathak.
about men,
And,
the male dancer in Kathak.
huh, and one about,
Was on Birju Maharaji.
yeah, Kathak and Birju Maharaj Prasang was a separate matter. It took
I
place
see.
otherwise, which was wholly concentrated on Birju Maharaj. But Kathak Prasang, Kathak ke gharane,
Hmm.
etc. And some of this material which was lying for a long time unedited, and Rashmi looked into it and then added some more from elsewhere, and then put together Kathak Prasang, the book, which again, mind you, these 2 publications had already taken place in in the beginning of, I mean, within the 5 years of the Chakradhar Nitya Kendra, where I think 25 years of Kathak Ken never produced a book of any kind, as far as I know, unless it was done
And they
later.
still haven't. They still
Yeah.
haven't.
So the idea was that these Kathak dancers, these young dancers, will also be exposed to whatever is happening in the world of Kathak, and also what was being thought by various peoples about Kathak, various aspects and all. If you recall, Chakradhar Singh was doing exactly this in a different way.
The documentation.
Yeah, the documentation at one level, and secondly, getting all kinds of people in his court, people from all gharanas to come and teach and all that. So, for
And
instance,
one more thing which he did was that as a representative of the All India Musical Conference,
uh,
he ensured that there was visibility about the work at
yeah,
his
yeah,
court
yeah, yeah,
because he also became the president on one of the conferences that
yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah,
So where
yeah,
he released the Nartan Sarva
yeah,
song
yeah,
in
yeah.
that year.
Now,
Yeah.
the other thing was that therefore, in a different context, we were trying to do that. Our resources were not so unlimited as Chakradhar Singh, in his madness for music and arts, decided to have his. But uh, to the extent it was possible, and then we also introduced a concept of workshops. So, for instance, Mohan Kalyanapurkar came. He was there with us for a while,
Hmm.
for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. I don't remember now exactly. And he had uh, sort of trained these young dancers there. So again, taking the cue from what Chakradhar Singh was doing. So we kept the essential spirit. One, two, changed circumstances, changed whatever, but finally it was not uh, one would say that a a gharana which had been forgotten, left out of the scenario, uh, except in personal reminiscences. But in terms of documentation, and this was ironical because Raigarh was the place where documentation of Kathak took place for the almost for the first time, unless Wajid Ali Shah did it before. There was no other attempt at documentation. This was
20th century definitely Chakradhar,
that's right.
19th century definitely the Awadh
Yeah,
court.
yeah. So now
Yeah.
what was kind of done, and thereby the it worked at two or three levels. At one level, it worked as a part of social cultural memory,
Mm,
that you had this and
mm,
that you can still have it. One, two, that it can still work,
mm,
although it cannot perhaps work to all that glorious heights, but it can still work. That is, it is still capable of creative possibility. And three, that there has to be an intellectual buzz around dance. And we try to do that. I mean, in the limited ways we could do that. And if you recall, Rai, Raigarh Gharana started mentioned in conversations about Kathak after this. Again, so they were sort of um, if you remember those discussions and seminars, etc., it started working. Now, the other problem, of course, has been that the howsoever protective the ambience may be these days, particularly, it becomes porous. So, for instance, even disciples who came later, Alpana herself became a teacher there because she was the most talented of the lot there. And she didn't want to get into a government job and all that, so she stuck to. And at that time, she represented the gharana in festivals in Delhi and elsewhere and all that. What happened was that this porousness made some ideas of success creep in. Uh, in case of Kartik Ram, he was not aiming at success. His aim was creativity.
mm,
His aim was kind of uh, excellence. Uh, he got success that is incidental,
mm.
but it was not his aim.
Right.
You know, but now Ramlal, according to me, uh, and at sometimes I sort of had sharp, heated discussions with him because at one point I thought he was trying to undermine his father in some ways. But more importantly, he was thinking of success. Now, that was something which I tried to dissuade him from. That why should you be bothered? Have I asked you that you should produce successful disciples? Why this idea bugs you?
But has he produced?
No, I mean that's another matter. That's
Yeah,
another.
you see,
I mean,
because it comes as a
you
complete theme that
see, the point was that that is, and in any case, the idea that there is a form which can,
and a vocabulary
well,
and a
yeah,
vocabulary which is alternate.
yeah. The other part of the story is the manuscripts, which were so lovingly, carefully, imaginatively, sensitively created, with a lot of effort, with a lot of uh, sort of rigor and exactness and all that. Sadly, all attempts to bring them in public sphere did not succeed. Uh, you told me the other day that even you tried. I was at one time trustee of IGNCA, and tried to suggest to the INCA that if you would like to ac- acquire them, and because the the family by that time seemed to have gone into a spin about the economic financial expectation from the manuscripts, and they were quoting some astronomical figure, some crores or whatever. And there was a time when I was told, I was not a personal witness, but I was told by reliable sources that the manuscripts were in Bhopal for a while in a
They were,
rented house,
they were.
and these manuscripts were dumped into the
Garage.
garage because the royal family member failed to pay the rent, whatever. Now, all that. So I do not know now where are they. IGNCA could not acquire them. Sangeet Nat Academy also did not make any attempt, although I'm told they were suggested to them. I also told whoever was the secretary at that time, I don't remember, we should make some effort. So that documentation and that research, which has gone so deeply into all that, are lost, or I don't know where are they, because that was one big thing which could be which could help revive the Gharana and also make Kathak a little more intellectually equipped to handle the changing times and all that.
Thank you so much. And, it's just to end this recording, um, I was very fascinated that this was also the period of, though very brief, Chakradhar was there on the throne for a very brief time because by the time he became the king, only 10 years or so
Hmm.
he was
Hmm.
there before he was poisoned.
Huh? Yeah,
Before
yeah,
he
yeah.
was poisoned.
Yes,
Huh?
yeah.
But the more important part was when he sent his court painter, like many other uh, Maharajas did, to equip themselves with the painting traditions of Europe.
Hmm.
And his court painter, who had gone to Paris, came back and spoke about, because Chintamani Kashyap, the scribe, he said, कोई चीज होती है cubism. And I
Hmm.
was quite, he says it in his interview.
Uh,
कोई चीज मैडम जी होती है cubism.
uh,
वो cubism लेकर आए थे, इसका ज्ञान लेकर आए थे.
uh,
तो महाराज ने फिर सब लोगों को बिठाया और कहा ये कुबिज्म क्या है.
uh,
तो फिर बहुत चर्चा हुई. एंड द होल आइडिया वाज breaking the body, breaking the body of the composition, breaking the body of the anga
mm,
down and reimagining it.
mm,
And following that discussion, and this was on record with Chintamani Kashyap, that he started figuring a whole league of compositions
mm,
inspired by the yantra
uh,
of Tantricism
mm,
and creating sound inspired bandishes for Kathak,
uh,
because that was way. And then you got the paintings with the illustrations of the compositions, and even the tal mandal that he created were all a part of imagining the geometry of the
yes,
tal.
yes.
The Tal Mandal was such a scientific way and a mathematical way of enunciating the idea of rhythm. And another thing which I realized, that Vikram Master Sahab of Lucknow,
Mm,
that was a hidden story in the history of Kathak. Uh, Vikram Singhe, the dancer from Sri Lanka, who became the prime student of Achan Maharaji,
mm,
but was told by the wife of Bachchan Maharaji to swear that he will not perform on the
mm.
dead body of her husband.
Oh,
And her rationale was two. One, that I see you and I remember my husband. Such is the way you dance. His entire essence is encapsulated in your form. Second reason was the Khalifa. He has to be protected.
mhm,
That is Bidu Maharaj.
uh,
But Master Saab, as he was popularly known, had documented, Maharaji had documented him a lot. And I asked Maharaji that where does, how do you trigger this imagination of creating the highs as poetic images? Almost the audio visual idea of
mm,
compositions that you create. And that imagination then expands into your productions. Like you had the jungle created in Tal, Aranyas, he called it something Aranyan. Where do you get these? He was quiet, but I had just finished my field work in Raigarh and looked at this. So there, I wrote a small article on the audio-visual imagery of the Raigarh compositions.
mm,
So the sonic idea of the compositions, along with the visual imagery, which Biju Maharaji took forward, I think that was the Raigarh connection.
mhm, maybe.
It's very much a Raigarh connection.
And I have a family connection with the Raigarh court because my uncle,
Chacha, Mama,
uh, uh,
it was your
my
Chacha.
chacha, my Tau, Anand Mohan Vajpeyi, was the private secretary of Chakradhar Singh.
Because I saw the records and his name had come up, and I always wondered, is he related to you?
Mm.
But he was also a part of the documentation team,
Yeah,
interesting.
yes, he was. He was. So he was. I didn't know about this at all because he died very early. I was barely, I think, 5 or 6 or 7 year old when he died, and I never had any occasion. But my father also studied in Raigarh in the school. This I knew, but I didn't know uh, about the Kathak connection of Chakradhar Singh until I met Rashmi and all that. So, in a small way, we tried. to do something so that that style, that gharana does not disappear, and that it is rehabilitated both in memory and performance, and that it should become like it was during Chakradhar's time, a, a, a forum of some reflection on Kathak itself.
I would go even one step ahead. A person like Kalpana needs to be documented because one of the big things which is happening with AI and
Mm.
Zoom and virtual reality and the dance coming on a flat stage like a mobile screen,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
cannot escape the Generation Z and how they access dance both as audience and as learners is the fragmentation of the body which comes out of the cubist
Mhm.
length in the Raigarh Gharana. And I
Mhm.
think there needs to be a serious documentation of Alpana done, keeping in view of the virtual reality of how dance needs, Kathak needs to be repositioned.
You
And
know, when Karthik Ram came, he was already 70-year-old,
right, I know.
Gopal,
Yeah,
because
I
he's 1910 born
right,
and he came in 1980,
right.
81. So he was already, but you can't imagine a person who has retired from dance and who had started working as a farmer. In about a month settling down, we would visit him time and again, and he was so full of memories and would do with his rather infirm body, he will create magic just like that. I mean, it was so amazing to see that a 70-year-old man, and he was not very good looking, was rather dark, huh? And yet he was is still capable of creating very tender beauty, very fragile moments of observation and gestures.
Perhaps it could be because the training schedule that was put in place by Chakradhar Maharaj,
That was a very
rigorous. These boys were made to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
yeah, yeah.
go into the riyas,
Uh,
come back to go into their rooms in the valley after breakfast and have breakfast, which was ghee and badam. And they were made to dance on sand. They had two pairs of ghungroos,
uh,
one which were very heavy, which were the Riyazi ghungroos. The other were the lighter ghungroos, and Maharaj had got them done. There's in Agra, near Agra, there's a place where ghungroos are made. So all the ghungroos were made from Agra, brought to Delhi, and then to Raigarh. Just as when these manuscripts were created, they were sent to Macmillan in England to be leather bound with
mm,
locks, with locks. And for each of the manuscripts, there were three drafts created. So one of the draft was with Chintamaniji,
mm,
which was taken by P.D. Ashirvadamji. That's
mm,
how he produced the book
mm,
Raigarh Darbar.
mm.
But coming back to the rigorous, I mean, the whole day, it was nothing but dance.
Once, yeah.
And in the night, when the discussions would take place with the documentation team, the scribes would be sitting behind the parda writing.
Mm,
They were not allowed to come in front.
mm,
They were isolated. They went into depression. There were two of them. So under Chintamani, there were two others. They went into isolation. They were not paid. They were, with great difficulty, they were given spectacles. So it's very, very interesting of the processes that happen. So it's not surprising like a person like Sitara Devi or a Karthik Ram were performing till the very end for hours.
mm.
with agile minds and agile bodies.
Mm.
उनके जो शुरुआत में जो खुराक मिली है,
Right.
बड़ी तगड़ी
हाँ,
खुराक
good.
उनको मिली. So
चलिए.
thank you so much.
Thank
But I would urge the Raza Foundation to please document, and I'll be more than happy to have these dialogues with Alpana,
you.
because just now she has everything fresh in her mind, and especially against the age that we are living, which is AI and virtual
Yeah.
reality. Raigarh, as an oral history, at least should be documented, since the manuscripts are missing. So at least that should be done immediately. So
Okay.
I would urge you to have a series of podcasts on
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Thank,
Thanks.
thank you. Thanks so